Hey everybody, this is Mason with DB Services, and today we're going to be going over how to create a web app using Vue.js and how to integrate that into FileMaker. So first of all, what is Vue.js? Vue.js is a JavaScript framework. It's a progressive framework, which means you can implement it as much or as little as you want, so it's very flexible. It has a lot of similarities, in my opinion, to how FileMaker works. So there's a lot of parallels there, but it's much better suited for the web. If you're familiar with React or Angular, it's similar to those frameworks, and I think it's really easy to get up and going with this over those other alternatives. So, yep, that is what Vue.js is. Some of the reasons you might want to use Vue as well is they have a lot of components that you can pull in really easily and start using in your project. For example, there's this Vue.jsexamples.com, which just has tons and tons of different things. Rich text editors, um, forms, all sorts of stuff. So these can be very helpful, and they can either be integrated into like a web portal, or sometimes they can be integrated directly into your FileMaker system using web viewers. And that's what we're going to be doing in this part one of the series. We're going to do another part two of this series where we get more into creating an actual web portal that communicates with FileMaker using the Data API. For today, though, we'll stick to just integrating it right in directly in a web viewer. So I found this editor that I liked. It's called Vue2 Editor. It's a simple text editor that you can integrate into FileMaker. It uses Quill.js behind the scenes, but someone's packaged it nicely so it'll work with Vue. So that is kind of the goal of what we're going to do. In order to do that, you do need to install Node.js. So you can just go to nodejs.org. You can download the long-term release is fine. You can just download that. It installs really easily. So you go ahead and do that. Another tool you might want to have is the Vue.js DevTools, which you can just search in the Chrome Web Store. This will make it a lot easier to debug your tool. And then finally, so once you've got npm installed, you need to install the Vue command line tool. So let's go ahead and do this part together. Let's find the installation. There it is. So we're going to be using npm to install. So once we've got Node installed, we can just run this right in our terminal. So the -G means it's globally installed, so it doesn't matter which directory you're in when you run this command. So we'll go ahead and let that run. It might take longer on your machine. I've already installed it, so it should go pretty quick. But we'll just skip ahead. All right, with that done, next we can just check the version, make sure it got installed. Yep, so I've got that installed. Up next, we can start creating our project. So I am going to change directory into my web projects folder. I've got a few other things in here. And then next up, what we're going to do is just start a new project. So there are command line commands for doing that. Very easy. You just do view create and then the name of the project, which will create a new folder for you. We're actually going to use the view command line actually provides a GUI now. So you can do view UI, and what this is going to do is it's going to spin up a little web server on your machine, and then you can actually install and create projects and manage them directly from your browser. So I have no browsers yet, so let's go ahead and create a new project. We will do it. Yeah, this is a good directory. We'll call this Vue Editor, and we'll use npm, which is Node Package Manager. It's the most popular one, but they're all pretty similar. All right. That looks good. I've got a couple presets in here, but let's go ahead and go through this manually. So I do want Babel. Babel is going to basically let you write ES6 JavaScript, which is a newer version, and it will compile it and turn it into, make it compatible with older versions of browsers, which is helpful if you're integrating this into like on a FileMaker on Windows, because it uses Internet Explorer. So you'll definitely want that. TypeScript we don't need for this. This is going to be a simple project. Don't need that. We don't need routing because this is going to just be a single page. We'll do routing in Vuex and part 2. I will turn on the CSS processor. I like to write my CSS as Sass, but probably won't be super important here. And in a real project, you'd probably want some tests. We're going to skip that for now, and that looks good. We want Sass CSS and project name. I'm going to not save this. Continue without saving. That was to save a default if you want to use the same thing in the future. Alright, once that's done, you should be on your project dashboard. From here, you can install plugins, manage your dependencies, configuration, all that good stuff. So we're going to be, let's first of all search and see if we can find this Vue 2 editor. Let's grab that. See if we can find that. So we'll install it. We'll search plugins, and there we go. We found it. So we just click that. We can install, and this is basically just running the install command for you. So instead of you going into the project and typing npm install in your terminal, you can run it all through a GUI, which, if you're not very familiar or comfortable with the command line, that might be preferred. All right, so we now have that. So we've got our dependencies. All right, now we can start up our project and start testing it. So I'm actually going to kill the GUI right now. So that's Control C on Mac, and Windows to kill a process from running. So if you'll notice, if I list the directory, we should have the Vue editor folder, which we do. So I'm going to cd into that. Okay, and let's actually open that up in Visual Studio Code. All right, there we go. Just open that. So this is a pretty basic directory, and pretty typical of what you're going to get when you start up a new project. So most JavaScript projects, to be honest. So this node modules, there's going to be a lot of stuff in here. You can honestly just ignore most of it. It's just a lot of dependencies that Vue uses and Webpack and stuff. A lot of things behind the scenes that we don't need to concern ourselves with. There's a README, the package JSON. This is what NPM uses to manage all the dependencies. So you'll notice, we have the name of our project, the version. We have a couple scripts that we can run. So if we type in the terminal npm run, we have serve and build available to us. You could add more if you want additional scripts that you want to call. Currently, we're using Core.js, Vue, and Vue 2 editor. It added that for us. And we have that Babel plugin. We have Node Sass and the Sass loader. So these, I think all of these are to do the CSS transpiling. Yeah, that is basically what the package.json does. There's some config files you don't really need to touch. Don't need to touch that. Most of what you're going to be doing is inside source. So in here we have main.js. This is where everything's kind of initialized. So if you look in public, we have this index file. This is your main index file, and you'll notice this is our entire HTML app. All it is an empty div tag with an ID of app. And if you don't have JavaScript enabled, all you're going to see is that nothing, basically. It's just going to say you need to enable JavaScript. So as long as JavaScript is enabled, this is going to load in the main.js file. And what this does is it configures a new Vue instance, and it's going to be mounting it to our ID of app. So it starts up a new Vue instance, mounts it to here, and that's basically all it's doing. It is importing the Vue library, and it's also importing our app component. So app is where we're going to be doing most of our work. It's just a standard Vue component, and Vue components, they have a template section, a script section, and a style section. And a lot of traditional, in the olden days, you wouldn't want to mix your HTML, your CSS, and your JavaScript. You'd want to split them into separate files for performance reasons. But in Vue, they keep them all together in a component, which makes it really easy to understand, this script is affecting this code and this style, and we could even scope this, which means it'll only ever affect this app. So it's a very nice way to work. And once you actually build your code, it does split everything out and makes it as performant as possible. So that's important to know. So yeah, let's get started. Right now let's actually spin up our Webpack server so we can see what we're working with. So again, I'm running npm run serve. So this is for development, and then when you're ready to build, you would run that command. So I'm in my terminal. I am inside the Vue editor folder, and I'm going to run npm run serve. And that should spin it up. We should be able to access it at localhost and then a port number. Okay, localhost 8080. So let's just get rid of that. All right, here's our Vue app. So that is showing right here. We have our image at the top, and if we right click and inspect, you can actually see, if you have the Vue DevTools installed, you'll have this under here, and you'll see this is our app component. There's no reactivity or anything here, but then under app we do import and we use another template or another component called Hello World, and that has a message of welcome to your Vue.js app. And yeah, oh, it's right here. And we could actually, yeah, well, we're just going to get rid of that for now. We don't need this. So you'll notice this is a Hello World component. We've registered the component here. Instead of doing that, we're going to import that component that we downloaded and installed, the Vue2 editor. And if you notice, it has some usage instructions here. So we're just going to copy that. And we are going to, instead of importing Hello World, we're going to import our view editor. So we're going to have a problem though. If I save this and go back to here, we're going to have a problem. We haven't registered that component and we're not actually using it. So right here, we're still trying to register the hello world component. So we should be getting an error. Well, if we tried to reload, we get an error. So instead, I am going to pull that component in so we can use it. And then once we've imported it and registered it, now we can use it inside our template. So view editor. Oops, there we go. But we probably, oh no, that's all we needed. All right, so now we have a fully, you can customize this and change your headings, do bulleted list. It's not that bulleted list. So yeah, it's pretty quick and easy. We can actually get rid of that this image. We don't need that. All right, there we go. So we have our editor, and you'll notice it shows up just like any other component would, but it does have a few properties that come with it. So does it have any custom modules? No, we didn't pass it any. So all of these we could pass to it. So if we look at this, we can see value. That might be in placeholder. Those could be some interesting ones we want to pass. So that means up here, we can pass it like this. And that should mean it'll start out with some text, which it does. If we wanted placeholder instead, we get that. So that's very nifty, and I think very easy way to understand how it's all working. And there's probably a lot more options we could do in here, and this kind of explains them all. vModel is probably what we're actually going to be doing. So yeah, let's do vModel. So vModel is a special two-way binding syntax that Vue has, and it'll let you bind it to data properties in your Vue instance for that component. So just do that, and we return a object. So now we can put as many data properties on here. So we'll call this one just text, and we'll start with null. And up here, we are binding it. So we're saying this model, this Vue editor, whatever we type in there is going to be bound to this data property here. Why that's useful? Well, we can actually display it down here. In fact, let's actually maybe call this text is fine. All right, so let's go back to our app, and you'll see when we type in stuff here, we're actually writing HTML down below. And this is, I didn't have to do much to bind that. That was pretty quick and easy. And you'll notice on app, you'll see a data property for the text here. And there's a data property on the Vue editor as well. So this brought in a lot of complex stuff, and we can kind of simplify it down to just what was the HTML that was inputted in there. So very easy. And if we didn't want to display it as the raw HTML, what we would do is we would do I believe this is how you would do it. Let's give it a shot. And let's just make sure that's working. Yep. We have some CSS that's centering it for us. We'll just probably get rid of that. Don't need it. There we go. All right, so we got a pretty respectable app going right now. We haven't imported it into FileMaker yet, but we are going to need one more thing. We're obviously going to want to save this to FileMaker. But first, let's just get it in there, and then we'll add the save button in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of done with my dev. Actually, no, let's just add the button now. It'll be a little easier to do it now. So we will just make a save button. Oops. And when we click the save button, we're going to want to call an FMP URL. So after my data property, I'm going to make a methods. Methods you can think of as scripts. Sorry, that's not right. So we're going to make a method called save. And it is just a function, and it is going to call a URL. So first we need the text. Well, we got the text because we can reference it there. So what we need is the URL. So let's do that. Var URL equals, and we're just going to use FMP URL. So we'll do actually the FileMaker 18 syntax, so we make sure it opens in the right version. And we'll use the $sign to tell it we want to save. It should already be open in our FileMaker, so we don't have to type in the IP address or anything. And then we need the file. I already created a file for us. What did I call this? Oh, okay. So we're going to want to URL encode that. There we go. So articles, right to there, DB services. All right, so we've URL encoded it. Paste that in there. Let's just shrink that for a second. All right, and then we need to tell it which script we want to run. We'll make a script called save, and we want to pass in a param, and the param we want to pass is the text. So you can reference text by doing this.text. This is referencing the object, the parent object, so the view component, and then we have access to the data properties and any other computed properties or whatever you have on your view instance. So it makes it really easy to share data between everything. You'll also notice I'm not doing semicolons everywhere. You don't have to use that if you're using the view command line tool, because it'll compile it and it'll add all those for you. All right, so now that we have our URL, let's maybe just console log it for a little bit easier testing. And then we will go to that URL. So we'll just change the window location .href. All right. So before we do anything, let's make a text object or text field. We'll just throw it on there. and we need our script. So to keep it easy, we just called it save, and it's really just going to set field text with our script parameter. And then we'll just commit the record. All right, let's go into browse mode there. All right, so we have our save button. Let's just test it out really quick. All right, did not work. Let's check our console. Actually, let's reload our page. Oh, I don't, it should be still running. Oh, I didn't tie our button to our new method, so that is why it's not working. So to do that, you can use @click equals save. So now it's tied to that model, or sorry, to that method. All right, we save that. Okay, this is a good thing to know. You do have to enable access privileges so that you can perform this action. So you go File, Manage Security, and we go to Advanced Settings, and we'll just do it for full access. We need to allow URLs to perform FileMaker scripts. And we'll allow that. Try this one more time. There we go. So now we have a JavaScript app where we can save data into FileMaker, but obviously we want to bring that web app into FileMaker. So how do we do that? Well, that is actually pretty easy. We're going to stop our web server, our development server, with Control-C, and then we're going to run npm run build. And while that's running, let's remind you again that if you forget the commands, you can look at your package.json and look at the scripts, and it is just npm run serve or npm run build. All right, and what the build command is going to do is it's going to create a dist folder for you for distribute, and it's going to put all of our HTML and our JavaScript in there. It actually didn't even create any CSS because we're not using any. I stripped out all the CSS. But if we wanted to style, let's actually style that button really quickly. I'll just say button is, that's probably going to look really ugly. But let's give that a shot. So we're going to build again. And just so you know, it will delete that dist folder and it's going to recreate it. So dist. Now we have the CSS folder, and you'll notice we have that button, and it minimizes it and it strips out unnecessary stuff. So it'll be the same, but it'll be optimized. And then you'll notice our JavaScript is pretty much unreadable because it's minimized and as short as can be. It also includes the map files. This make it easier when you're debugging. We're not going to bother with them. We just need the JS files here, the CS file, and this HTML file. So first thing I like to do is set up the index, and we're going to make this a calculation in FileMaker. First thing I like to do is find any double quotes and replace them with / double quotes. Just makes it easier. So we did that. We copy. Now we come back to FileMaker, and we're going to make an index.html calculation. We'll paste it in there. Actually, so as you can see, this is really hard to read. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that find and replace, and I've got a keyboard shortcut in this code editor that will format the HTML for me. Basically makes it a little less performant, but I can actually understand it a little bit better. So I formatted it. You can find formatters online anywhere. All right, now I'm going to replace those with slashes. There we go. So let's paste that in instead. Much better, a lot easier to read. All right, so then now we need to make a couple changes. Well, let's save that for now. We'll come back to it in a second. So up next, we need to make our app.js file. So app.js, this can just be a text file. Then we need a vendor.js. This is where the view files and the view editor files are going to go. And then we need our app.css. All right, so now we can go back into our index. And since FileMaker doesn't have a concept for importing, like linking from a folder like this, so instead what we're going to do is we're going to inline these. So we go, this is a style, so we do that. And then in between, we can just inline our app.css. All right, so this is where it wants our app JavaScript. Actually, we don't need these. These are just links to them. We're actually going to replace the script text down here. So we're not going to have a source for the vendors. Instead, we'll inline our vendor.js file, and then same for here. So you only have to do this part once. Once you've kind of got the index set up, you can make changes a lot quicker. App.js. Okay. We now have our index HTML set up. So let's just move that off to the side. And let's bring in our web viewer. All right. So we do need to do a little trick to get it to work in FileMaker. You have to do data : text/HTML, comma, and then we can pull in our index HTML. So we've done that. I'm just going to turn that and that off. And let's see what we got. All right, it is not working. So that's all right. We can figure out what's going on. What I like to do is, actually we need to name our object first. So we'll just pull this into our data viewer. We can do get layout object attribute web. We can check the source and the content. So source, okay, content. We're not getting anything. And what I'm thinking I did is I didn't import. I know what I did. Yeah, this is an easy one. So we forgot to bring in the rest of our files. So we need to bring in app.css. We need our app.js. And we need our vendor.js. That ought to help. So to do that, we just find those files. Make this a little smaller. So this is our app.js. I just copy all that, paste it in there. We go to the chunk vendors JS and paste that in here. And that is a lot, so it'll take a second. There we go, shows up. And if we bring in our ugly CSS, it should change that as well. There we go. Let's leave that out. All right. So let's give this a shot. Oops, can't spell. We save that. There we go. So we could also make this a second web viewer to actually display just the raw HTML content. So it would be something like data, HTML, text, text/HTML, comma, and text. We're gonna see a little bit of a weird side effect because we didn't bring any of the standard boilerplate for like body, HTML, and stuff. And you'll also notice that it didn't do sans serif, but you get the idea. And we will just turn that to a list. We'll save that. So now you can kind of have an editable version and a non-editable version. So that's all pretty good. But what about, if you have multiple records and you want to populate this one with something? Oh, we should have made these globals. Do that real quick. So obviously, if you're doing globals and you're doing dev on a server, you'll want to either take the file offline before you add in the data, or do this slightly different way. Because yeah, we're gonna have to import these again real quick. There we go. So now we should see it on every layout. But you'll notice when we come back and we render this again, it didn't bring in test 1, 2, 3 that we had saved on record 1. So what we need to do is we need to populate our vModel on startup. So let's modify our code a little bit. And what we need to do is let's minimize some of this. So in our public, this is the easiest way I found to kind of load data from FileMaker in, is that you would do in the head of in the body of your index.html, you would want to set a script tag where you are basically loading in a variable. So var FileMaker text equals, for right now, we'll just populate this with just a string. Doesn't matter. This one will need a colon because it's not going to be processed by Vue. And then on our app.view, instead of starting with null, we start with this variable. So that's the only change we need to do here. We're going to build this again. So while that's building, since I don't want to recreate the entire index page, I'm just going to copy this section of it, go to our FileMaker Pro 18, and we'll just edit this calculation for index.html. So we'll just after the body, we'll throw in this script tag, and instead of bringing in nothing, what we'll do is we'll do single quotes, then we'll do double quotes, 2 ampersands, and we will bring in our text from here. So we've done it, but we still don't see the results because we haven't updated it with our newest build. So our build should be done, and it is. So in our dist folder, we just need to replace app.js right here. We shouldn't have to replace vendor.js because nothing has changed there. We didn't import any new packages or anything, so this should be the same. But we did change our actual stuff that we actually write, so we needed to update that. Just right away it brought in the data. So we can go between records. We should also be able to save images. So let's try that real quick. I got this small image here. I'll save that. Oh, did not work. Let's take a look at our code real quick. So let's do npm run build to get our web server back up and going again. And remember we added this console.log here to the URL. That'll be helpful right now. So let's go back in here, reload. Oh, I hit build instead of run or serve. There we go. All right. Let's see if we can access it now. There we go. Still have our blue button. All right, so what's happening when we add an image? Sure, let's add that image. Hit save, console. Looks like it's coming in. So my guess is that we're having issues with these quotes and stuff. So we're going to need to URL encode our text before we pass it through. So we'll make var URL encoded text equals, and we can use the encode URI. What is it? Well, I have it saved here. Encode URI component. Capital C. Component, and this dot text, and then we'll pass that. Sorry, that's not what I wanted. That right there. All right. So let's go ahead and click save. Let's refresh real quick. There we go. Got our image. Okay. So again, now we just have to build it again. So Control C to stop our server. npm run build. And once that's done, we can just find it in our dist folder. Alright, just deleted that. Give that a second to process. There we go. JavaScript app and copy, paste it over here. And let's make a new record. We'll just add a new image. Save that. There we go. So, and if let's look at what the text looks like. The raw HTML should just be, a lot of base64. Yep, that's all it is. Bring this back in. There. So now if we wanted a read-only copy, we could have that, or we could just straight up use this. And if you wanted to get rid of those outlines, that's easy enough. Get rid of that. In focus, we just turn off the outer shadow. There we go, that's looking nicer. So yeah, let's clean this up a little bit. We'll just dump that off the side for now. And let's make sure this is stretching. There we go. We have an editor that we can use now directly in FileMaker. It'll save your records if you come back and forth. New records. So yeah, it's working pretty well. Yeah, the only thing that we'd probably want to do is get away from having a save button. That's a little bit more complicated, so we're not going to tackle that today. But yeah, obviously people in FileMaker are used to not having to hit a save button. But they're also not used to rich text formatting like this, so it's a very nice way to do that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the series. We'll have another episode next month, and we'll go more in depth into FileMaker and the web. So thank you very much for watching.